All right, welcome back. I'm now going to be reviewing every team's record at the end of the regular season, where they're at, whether they made the playoffs or not. Starting with the Anaheim Ducks. So at the end of their 82 game season, they finished 23, 47, and 12 for 58 points. They finished last in the Western Conference, and ideally, they're also the last team overall. So maybe they'll have a better chance of getting Connor Bedard when that lottery comes around. So when the lottery pick comes around next month. The last time the Anaheim Ducks saw action in the postseason was in 2018, where they got swept in the first round by the San Jose Sharks. Arizona Coyotes finished the season 28, 40, and 14 for 70 points. They finished 13th overall in the Western Conference. This is now going to be their third consecutive season without seeing any action in the playoffs. The last time they made it was in 2020, where they beat the Nashville Predators in the play-in round, but unfortunately they fell short against the Avalanche in 5 games in the first official round of the postseason. The Boston Bruins finished the season with the best record not only in their conference but in the league with 65, 12, and 5 record, 135 points. Not only did they break the record for most wins by an NHL squad in the season, but they had the most points by any team in the history of the NHL. For the Bruins, this has to be basically cup or bust. I mean, they've had such an amazing season. There's no reason why they shouldn't be favorites, to say the least. And with that being said, this is now their seventh consecutive season where they've made the playoffs. The furthest that they've gone during that 7 year span was in the 2019 season when they got all the way to the Stanley Cup final, but unfortunately fell to the Blues in 7 games. The Buffalo Sabres, a team on the rise, they would finish the regular season in in 10th place in the Eastern Conference with a record of 42, 33, and 7 for 91 points. This is now going to be their 12th consecutive season where they have not had any action in the Big Dance. This is now the longest streak in the NHL. On the contrary to that, I truly believe that this is a team that should be able to break that spell and finally get back into the postseason after over a decade. The Calgary Flames finished the regular season 38, 27, and 17 for 93 points. Disappointing to say the least, as they will not be seeing any action in the postseason after winning their division just a year ago. Yes, losing guys like Johnny Hockey and Matthew Tkachuk sure did not help, but I figured if they brought in Jonathan Huberdeau, Nazem Kadri, that they would have been able to use those guys with their experience to get over the hump. But unfortunately, inconsistency and a lot of overtime slash shootout losses sure did not play in their factor or in their favor. Just a quick note. So this is now going to be their second time in 3 seasons where the Flames did not make the postseason. Carolina Hurricanes won the Metropolitan Division for the second year in a row with a record of 52, 21, and 9 for 113 points. This is now going to be their fifth straight year where they have seen action in the postseason. The furthest that they've gone was in 2019 when they got all the way to the Eastern Conference Final, but unfortunately they got swept by the Boston Bruins. So in their mindset, it has to be let's get back to the Final Four, or heck, even take a step further and potentially try to get into a Stanley Cup final berth. Chicago Blackhawks finished the season 15th overall in the Western Conference with a record of 26, 49, and 7 for 59 points. This is now going to be their third straight season where there won't be any postseason action in the city. The last time they made it was in 2020 in the bubble when they beat the Edmonton Oilers in the play-in round, but unfortunately they fell short against the Vegas Golden Knights in 5 games. The Colorado Avalanche have won the Central Division with a record of 51, 24, and 7. It was a nail biter to the end, and I figured that it would be between them and the Stars. This is now for the Avalanche going to be their fifth straight season where they have made the postseason. Obviously, last year they came away as Stanley Cup champs, and they should be favorites going into the 2023 playoffs as well. The Columbus Blue Jackets finished last in the Eastern Conference with a record of 25, 48, and 9 for 59 points. For a team that had, I don't want to say high expectations, but after signing Johnny Gaudreau, I figured that they would have been better than what they were a season ago. But unfortunately, their wheels fell off at the very beginning of the year. This is now going to be their third straight year where they have not seen any action in the postseason. The last time they made it was in 2020 when they beat the Leafs in the play-in round, but unfortunately, they fell against the Lightning in 5 games, I do believe. So moving forward, will this team be able to get more successful? Only time will tell. The Dallas Stars finished second in the Central Division with a record of 47, 21, and 14 for 108 points. For the Stars, this is now going to be their 4th time in the last 5 years where they will have action in the playoffs. The only time they didn't make it was in 2021. The furthest that they've gone during that span was in 2020 in the bubble when they got all the way to the Stanley Cup final, but unfortunately they fell to the Lightning in 6 games. Detroit Red Wings, they would finish the season in 12th place in the Eastern Conference with a record of 35, 37, and 10 for 80 points. This is now going to be where am I at here? Their 7th straight season where there has not been any action in the postseason. The last time they made it was in 2016 where they lost the Lightning in 5 games. The Edmonton Oilers finished second in the Pacific Division with a record of 50, 23, and 9 for 109 points. For the Oilers, this is now their 4th consecutive season where they've seen action in the playoffs. Last year was the furthest that they've gone during that 4-year span, where they got all the way to the conference final but fell to the Avalanche in 4 games. Florida Panthers, they would finish in a wild card spot, in the second wild card spot, with a record of 42, 32, and 8 for 92 points. It was a nail biter going all the way to the end. They needed Pittsburgh to lose, and they just narrowly squeaked in to that second wild card spot. So for the Panthers, this is now going to be their 4th consecutive season where they've gotten the postseason. Obviously, last year was the furthest that they've gone, which is just the second round. But that was their first series win since 1996. The Los Angeles Kings, they would finish 3rd in the Pacific Division with a record of 47, 25, and 10 for 104 points. For the Los Angeles Kings, this is now going to be their 2nd straight year where they've seen action in the playoffs. Their opponents last year was the Oilers. Their opponents this year will also be the Oilers. Will fate be on their side this time? Only time will tell. The Minnesota Wild, they would finish 3rd in their Central Division with a record of 46, 25, and 11 for 103 points. For the Wild, this is now their 4th straight season where they've seen action in the playoffs. They've been struggling to get into the second round. They've always been eliminated. Even in the 2020 when they got there, they got eliminated by the Canucks in 4 in the play-in round as well. So this is the time I believe that they are trying to hopefully they can get over that hump, but only time will tell. For Le Bleu, Blanc et Rouge, the Montreal Canadiens, they finished 15th overall in the Eastern Conference with a record of 31, 45, and 6 for 68 points. This is a team that's still on the rebound, still on the rebuild, and they should be contenders at some point, but I don't see it happening right away. But they do have a young talent in Caulfield and Suzuki. It's just a dynamic duo. It's kind of like Batman and Robin, in my opinion. Maybe I'm just biased because I'm a Habs fan, but they should be contending at some point, but obviously not in the 2023. So this is obviously their 2nd consecutive season where they have not seen action in the playoffs. The furthest that they've gone in the most recent was in 2021 when they got all the way to the Cup final, but lost to the Lightning in 5 games. The Nashville Predators will miss their postseason for the first time since 2014. They finished the regular season in 10th place in the Western Conference. 42, 32, and 8 was their record for 92 points. So as I previously said, they've made the playoffs for the past 8 years, but unfortunately in the Music City, there will not be any postseason action this upcoming spring. New Jersey Devils, I believe, stunned everyone, including myself. They finished 2nd in the Metropolitan Division with a record of 52, 22, and 8 for 112 points. A team that I did not expect to be as good this year, because obviously last year they were fairly poor. The last time that in The last time the Devils had any success in the postseason was in 2018, but it didn't make much of anything then and there as they got bounced in the first round to the Lightning in 5 games. Will they have more success this season, this postseason? I believe they should. They have a young core, but only time will tell. The New York Islanders are back in the postseason as they finished with the record of 42, 31, and 9. They got the first wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. This is now for the Islanders going to be, I have my notes, their fourth time in the last 5 years where they've been in the big dance. 2022, just a season ago, was when they missed the playoffs. And prior to that, in 2020 and 2021, respectively, they got to the Eastern Conference final, but fell to the eventual Stanley Cup champs in the Tampa Bay Lightning in 6 and 7 games, respectively. The New York Rangers finished the regular season third in the Metropolitan Division with a 47, 22, and 13 for 107 points. A team that is looking very dangerous, and I would hate to be their opponent if I'm going to be completely honest with you. They're deep down the center. They're deep down the right wing, left wing. They're just a deep team all around, and they're going to be very hard to contest, especially with the additions of Patrick Kane and Vladimir Tarasenko. This team made it all the way to the conference final last year without those two guys, so just imagine how far they can go with them. The Ottawa Senators finished the regular season in 11th place in the Eastern Conference with a record of 39, 35, and 8 for 86 points. This is now going to be the Senators' sixth straight year where they have not seen any action in the postseason. The last time they were there was in 2017 when they got all the way to the Eastern Conference Final and lost to the Pittsburgh Penguins in 7 games. Moving forward, this team should be able to contend at some point, but with any given year, there's no guarantees. Doesn't matter how much you've been developing, doesn't matter who you have on your team. Obviously, injuries and inconsistency can play a factor into whether a team is successful or they fall apart. So, in my opinion, they should contend at some point, but unfortunately, in 2023, it is not the year for the capital city. The Philadelphia Flyers finished the regular season in 14th place in the Eastern Conference with a record of 31, 38, and 13 for 75 points. This is now going to be the Flyers' third straight year where they have had no appearance in the Stanley Cup playoffs. The last time they were there was in 2020 when they lost in the second round to the Islanders in, I believe, 7 games. So as previously said with the Senators, with the Flyers, they should be able to contend at some point, but it just seems that inconsistency is such a major thing, and obviously injuries play a major factor as well. So they should get back to the big dance at some point. I'm sure if you're a fan of the team, you would love to see your team get back into the playoffs. The Pennsylvania rival, the Pittsburgh Penguins. This is one that absolutely blows my mind. They finished the regular season in 9th place in the Eastern Conference with a record of 40, 31, and 11 for 91 points. This is the first time since 2006 that there won't be any playoff action in the Steel City. The San Jose Sharks, they would finish the regular season in 14th place in the Eastern Conference with a record of 22, 44, and 16 for 60 points. This is now, for the Sharks, going to be their 4th straight season where they have had no playoff success. And it's kind of mind-blowing when considering they have veterans like Carlson, Hurdle, and Couture on their team. But obviously those guys can only do so much. They can only carry the team so far. And evidently it has shown with the last 4 years that they have not been able to get back into the playoffs. And a rebuild, in my question, there's no question it's going to be happening. So where are they going to trade these guys? Do they have to get a third team or a third party involved in order to deal with the contracts? Hey, just call up Arizona. They'll take anyone's contract. But as of 2023, no playoff in the California city. Sorry, I should have said the last time the Sharks had success was in 2019 when they got all the way to the Western Conference Final, but fell to the St. Louis Blues in 6 games. Now on to the Seattle Kraken, a team that I think surprised everyone, including myself. They would finish the regular season in the the first wild card spot, I do apologize, with a record of 46, 28, and 8 for 100 points, a 40-point improvement from just their first inaugural season. So the fact that they got into the playoffs is absolutely mind-blowing considering all the talent and all the other teams that were around them in the Pacific and also in the Central as well. So congratulations if you are a fan of the Kraken, and congratulations to the team overall to get into the Elite Eight, to say the least. The St. Louis Blues, they would finish the regular season with a 37, 38, and 7 record. They would also finish 12th in the Western Conference. So for the Blues, this is their first time missing the playoffs since 2018. It's going to be hard it's really hard to not picture the Blues in the playoffs. Obviously, their most successful postseason run was in 2019 when they won the Stanley Cup in 7 games against the Boston Bruins, but they have not been able to get out of that first or second round, respectively, ever since. The Tampa Bay Lightning, they would finish third in the Atlantic Division with a record of 46, 30, and 6 for 98 points. This is now for the Lightning going to be their sixth straight season where they've made the playoffs. They're obviously the two successful times that they've had. They have made it were in 2020 and 2021, respectively, when they beat both the Stars and the Canadiens in the Stanley Cup final. They got all the way to the Stanley Cup final just a year ago, but unfortunately they fell to the Avalanche in 6 games. Will they be able to be 4-time Eastern Conference champions, or will they finally be taken off their pedestal once and for all? Only time will tell. Toronto Maple Leafs, they would finish second in the Atlantic with a record of 50, 21, and 11 for 111 points. For the Leafs, this is now going to be their 7th straight season where they've had postseason action. They have never been able to get out of the first round. Will this finally be the year that they finally get off of that schneid and actually get to be able to make some type of noise in the playoffs? We'll have to wait and see. Vancouver Canucks, they would finish the regular season 10th in the Western Conference with a record of 38, 37, and 7 for 83 points. For the Canucks, this is now going to be their third straight year, 21, 22, 23, third straight season where they won't have any action in the playoffs. For the last time they made the playoffs was in 2020 when they would lose to the Vegas Golden Knights in the second round of the Western Conference semifinal in 7 games. Speaking of those Vegas Golden Knights, they would actually win their Pacific Division with a record of 51, 22, and 9 for 111 points for the Vegas Golden Knights. This is now going to be their 5th time in 6 years that they have made the playoffs. The last time they made, the only time in their history that they did not make it was just a season ago in 2022. I believe they should be able to be contenders this year, especially with the addition of Eichel, and just overall, they're a very fantastic team. And considering that they didn't have Marc-Andre Fleury, Robin Lehner, they've been coasting on like guys like Thompson, Brossoit, and just recently at the trade deadline, they acquired Jonathan Quick. So they have like a 3-headed or heck even a 4-headed monster if you want to include their 4th goaltender that can help between the pipes. For the Washington Capitals, they would finish the regular season 13th overall in the Eastern Conference with a record of 35, 37, and 10 for 80 points. Very disappointing to say the least. This last time the Washington Capitals missed the playoffs was in 2014. So the fact that they've gone 8 years and now they're out of the playoffs is absolutely mind-blowing, considering they have one of the greatest goal scorers in Alex Ovechkin on their team. But inconsistency, and obviously they thought bringing in a goaltender like Kemper, who won the championship last year with the Avalanche, would help, but unfortunately it was not meant to be. And the last team I'm going to be covering are the Winnipeg Jets. They would finish in the second wildcard spot in the Western Conference with a record of 46, 33, and 3 for 95 points. For the Jets, this is their now 5th time in the last 6 seasons where they've made the postseason. Obviously 2022, they had, just a season ago, just like Vegas, they did not make it. And during that 10-year time, the furthest that the Jets have made it, or the furthest that the Jets have gotten into the playoffs, was in 2018 when they reached the Western Conference Final, but then they got ousted in 5 games to the Vegas Golden Knights. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, take care.